All right, so I gotta be relatively brief today, but in today's video breakdown, I want to just go over the XRP trades that I had, breaking those down in detail for you guys, why I was taking the sells, then turning around into buys, taking a look at some things in the Discord that myself and Scalper were telling you guys in advance, as always, before the moves play out, just trying to keep you all in the loop with what we're looking at in the markets. So that way, we are always keeping you guys ahead of the average retail investor. Taking a look also at fundamentals. We'll break down price action and then we'll take a real quick look at what to be paying attention to. Let me meet you guys real quick. We'll take a brief look at what to be paying attention to tomorrow for our fundamental backdrop, kind of where we're at in the landscape today as well. All right. So as always, before I take my trades, I wake up in the rising and I come and I check the fundamentals. So these are the three trades that I'm going to be breaking down for you guys today. I took sells to buys and then took a second buy scalp on XRP. Actually, interestingly enough, on Fulcrum Finance, when I first started about a month ago, was trading at rank 9,000 out of 9,216, and I jumped up the ranks. I'm now trading at number 374. So my goal is to try to make it to the top 100 traders by the end of the year, which I firmly believe is possible, looking at some of their win rates. So I'll continue to keep you guys updated on that. Starting always off with fundamentals. So today, obviously, of course, is the Lunar New Year, right? February 17th, 2026. I discussed and talked about this before. I mentioned the trilateral negotiations are taking place on the Lunar New Year. Global elites don't hide the importance of understanding the planets, moons, and the stars, and this was posted on February 15th, 2026. Now, today, we saw updates on both Iran and Russia and Ukraine. There was some positive progressive talks on the Iranian front. Nothing has been completely solidified yet. I'll go over what I was saying to you guys in the fundamentals chat here in just a second. And then on top of that, we also had the announcements from the Russia-Ukraine front. So peace talks and negotiations are ongoing. However, Russia carried out strikes on Ukraine overnight, which just still goes to show that the war is, in my personal opinion, very far from being over at this moment in time. Albeit we could still see some type of announcement in the coming sessions ahead, or maybe even the next few hours, depending on how the talks materialize. But still, these things are ongoing. So we had data today, right? Let's go back over to the calendar. We had the Empire State Manufacturing figures, and we also had some labor market data in the ADP. Then I mentioned here with the Iran updates, progress is good. It's a great start, but we need to see uncertainty completely cleared and confirmed before we see a full-blown risk-on sentiment, right? So with that in mind, I was taking buys off the backdrop of this possibly leading to a slight risk-on approach in the market sentiment today. We can see good vocabulary here, good progress in talks with the US. That's positive vocabulary and rhetoric compared to what we've previously seen. So that was one of the fundamental supportive reasons as to why today I was taking some buy scalps on XRP. All right. Now coming over here and just taking a look real quick at what you guys had in the Discord. If we go back to a couple of days ago, the same date that I posted this trilateral talks taking place on the Lunar New Year, Scalper in the Discord posted this to you guys on Sunday. You can see in the screenshot, this is from February 15th, Sunday. And he mentioned here in this screenshot, he particularly said that this is an area of support and it will be key. Where buyers previously broke past the sell wall, price staying above this area will be bullish. And he highlighted these two psychological levels, $1.40 and $1.42 on XRP. Fast forward to 3 a.m. last night. As always, I'm always setting alerts and alarms for you guys and just trying to keep you all in the loop with what I'm doing. At 3:46 a.m., I mentioned, pay attention. My alarms are going off at $1.45, signaling that price is getting closer to $1.42 to see if buyers defend in this area, right? So now fast forwarding to price action today. Why was I taking these positions, sells, and then into buys based off the reaction? So you guys can see on the higher time frame, this gray box that I have marked off is that same box, i.e. highlighting where previous buyers broke through a previous sell wall, turned it into support, and then continued to trail all the way up into $1.62. This same gray box that I have on my charts is the same gray box that Uzi highlighted on Sunday morning for our community, right? As an area of interest where we could possibly see buyers come back in and test or defend where they previously bought from, right? So now coming over to the trade breakdown. And I just wanted to show you guys that on the hourly so you guys can kind of see my higher time frame area of interest. Just keep that in mind that when we go down to the lower time frames, that's this gray box. Okay. So I'm going to go all the way down to the 1 minute for the sake of time, today's video. But starting off at the beginning of New York session. Okay. So all I was thinking from roughly about I don't know, I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning when my alarm went off, sent that notification to you guys at 3:45, and I haven't slept since. So literally all I was thinking, which 3 a.m. my time, was all the way back here. All right, this is where my alarm went off and I started sending that signal to you guys. I'm sitting there thinking and I'm like, wow, look at this consolidation, all of this consolidation. And we're waiting this entire time for price to dip down into $1.42. So price is not at $1.42 yet. What I want to see, if we are going to go down to $1.42, is a break in structure and a retest of a premium or a pullback into a premium to try to take sell scalps into $1.42 before getting out of the position, turning around and looking for buy scalps. And so sure enough, you guys know I don't trade anything but New York session. So now following and tracking price action on the 1 minute time frame as New York session opens, we start to see a sell delta held pattern. So right here, before I sold, I saw, thinking about in terms of effort versus result, okay? We constantly see effort by buyers to push above previous highs that existed prior to the New York session open, okay? Here's an attempt by buyers to break higher. They fail, and we see sellers overpower and break a support. That was one signal that sellers are showing their hand in this area. Here again, think about it in terms of effort. Effort by buyers to push past higher prices prior to the New York session that fails. And then we see sellers match the momentum again. That was the second signal to me that sellers are showing their hand in this area yet again. The third attempt right here after New York session started was right here. And this to me was my green light. Why? Because we had a failure swing high. So yet again, effort versus result. We see 1, 2, 3, 4 buy candlesticks. You can imagine if you guys had order flow, there is buy volume in these. But the buy volume here failed to break above previous highs and engulf previous highs prior to the New York session. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts that have failed by buyers to break above previous highs. That to me was clear intent by the market makers to trap buyers, i.e. creating a liquidity platform. There's most likely a bunch of stop losses that exist beneath these lows, right? For them to dump price down into a discount, i.e. the overarching $1.42 range that we've been tracking since Sunday, for them then to take price higher. So right here, when we saw a failure swing high, that was my signal to start to pay attention to a structure break. And sure enough, we see here in this massive leg to the downside, sellers were strong enough to break previous support. So trailing this out, here was my 1. Once this low broke, here was my 2. So here was now my new A to B range. A to B, where previous support was broken. All that was left for me to do was take my fib from the high down to the low, extend it over to the right, and wait for price to come up into that zone that I personally like to highlight. And you guys can see how accurate this is and why I put my fib at the 79% retracement to the absolute pip. We see a 79% retracement on the pullback. Once I started to see sellers overpower buyers again, right here we have a triple moving average crossover. I entered on this aggressive bearish candlestick and rode this wave down into $1.42. So that was my first sell position. So just to recalibrate on those confluences real quick, we had failed attempts by buyers to break into new price mode or make higher levels compared to where price was trading at the beginning of New York session. Here's a high. You can see one failed attempt there, second failed attempt there, third failed attempt. And on the third failed attempt, we finally see sellers overpower the buyers that existed all in this area. And that leads to a new A to B move. My overall thesis was that if New York session is going to buy, they're most likely going to make an attempt to push price down into a discount, that $1.42 threshold, to then buy. So once price retraced, started pulling back, I took my fib from the high down to the low, waited for price to respect the 79 to 70% retracement. Once we saw sellers become aggressive enough, I waited for that confirmation to get a triple moving average crossover. Once we got that, I shorted XRP with a stop loss nice and tight above the high, straight down into $1.42. That was my first position. I literally closed probably right at this bearish candlestick. Now, flipping my bias from bearish to bullish was relatively easy, right? Paying attention to structure. Again, keep in mind, once price is coming down bearish into an area of interest, mind you, that area of interest we've been tracking since Sunday on XRP's price. What do I try to tell you guys to be mindful of and pay attention to? Structure, right? So sure enough, coming down into this area of interest, we can see a low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Then for the first time here, we see an intent by buyers to try to break a previous structure high. So right there, to me, that was a signal that buyers are interested in this price. Once we saw this wick beneath those lows, a small retracement, and then we saw a failure swing low here. So a one down, one up candle. This is the candle that I entered in on, i.e. the market creating a higher low instead of creating a new low in the market. And this was my first entry position. It was slightly aggressive, but nonetheless a good decision on my behalf. And I rode this wave back to the upside. So that was the first entry. So my confluences for this trade, this buy position, was waiting very patiently for $1.42 to be hit, which we've been tracking since Sunday. Once price came into my area of interest, waiting to execute my trade until we see a higher low formed in the market after price dumped into our overall higher time frame area. Taking a little bit more of an aggressive approach. Also on the order flow, I know I don't have that pulled up, but I saw trapped sellers at the bottom of this candlestick. There was an aggressive buyer in this candlestick, and then another trapped seller in this candlestick here, which also gave me confidence to enter in aggressively into this position. Now I closed this first trade because we had a trapped buyer at these highs once price started pulling back. But can somebody maybe tell me why they think I got confident here in this area, just looking at something that I like to utilize as to why I added another position onto my trade once price started pulling back? Can anybody tell me what they think?
It didn't break the resistant area.
Okay, close, Ron.
Yeah,
Lower
EMAs.
Okay, who said it? I think it was Aqua. Yeah, right. The EMAs, Milo, right? Good job, Aqua. So once price started pulling back, I said to myself, okay, great. If price is not strong enough, i.e. sellers are not strong enough to break previous supports, so you can see here where the triple moving average happened at. Buyers showing their hand, creating a support at the triple moving average, while price pulled back straight into the triple moving average. And I try to tell you guys, if you see price pull back into a previous support, couple that with a delta held pattern. So we see the delta held at a previous base. Here's a low. Violated. Then we see buyers show their hand and break a resistance. So we see a low violated. Momentum shifts. Buyers come back in control. All that was left for me to do to catch this last position on XRP was again take my fib from the low to the high and look at that accuracy. Price comes straight down into the 70% discount while staying above the triple moving average. We had the overall momentum shift. Buyers still in control. Sellers tried to make an attempt to overpower the buyers. They failed. The triple moving average holds as a support. That was my second aggressive entry. Stop loss nice and tight beneath the low. And then I rode this wave to the upside. I didn't catch the whole entire swing up into $1.49. I took profit once I saw buyers trapped at these highs here and price started to pull back. So in and out, these were the three trades from today. Very simplistic. CYPRX 2.0 coupled with delta held patterns, higher time frame areas of interest, understanding fundamental shifts, logic in the market, right? By not just anticipating that market makers are just going to start buying because we see previous buyers holding price as support, and instead using logic and thinking. Like I think that this is honestly probably the easiest thing that helped me today was seeing effort versus result, thinking to myself, okay, we see buyers here at the beginning of New York session, but after that, we don't see any buyers able to break this high. Huge buy volume here, huge buy volume here, huge buy volume here. That's three failed attempts by buyers, right, to push price into higher territory. That is a clear signal that the market makers have no intent to push price higher for now and are most likely going to discount price and clear out all the liquidity underneath of lows before they shift momentum, which just aligned perfectly with our overarching discounted area of $1.42 that we've been waiting for since Sunday, right? So beautiful buy positions, nice scalps in and out of XRP's price, made over 6 grand today, day trading XRP instead of waiting around for $1,000 price predictions, right? Super clean. Everything that we teach in this community came into fruition today in one package for sells and buys, fundamentals, and just areas of interest to be mindful of and pay attention to, right? Moving on for tomorrow, just to be mindful, okay? Right now, we're still waiting on any further developments, any Twitter tweets from Trump on the Iran US debacle that's going on. We still haven't seen full confirmation of what the talks entailed. So just be mindful of we've only seen things like progress, more talks are on the table. So we'll definitely be cognizant of any escalations or de-escalations. The Russia-Ukraine front is still at the very top of our minds. We still need to be mindful of any ongoing developments on that front. Same thing, same market sentiment applies. Positive negotiations, peaceful negotiations, any de-escalations will likely result in a risk-on environment, and inversely, any escalations or war outbreaks will likely weigh on market sentiment further. We still have some Fed speakers rolling into the remainder of today's New York session to be mindful of. 12 p.m. Fed Bowman speaks. Excuse me, that's tomorrow. I apologize. Fed member Barr speaks in 5 minutes. Usually he doesn't really comment on monetary policy and the state of the economy, though. He's usually more of like in the realm of technology. But we'll see if he says anything worth listening to. And then at 1:30 p.m. we have Fed member Daly speaking as well. Outside of that, tomorrow's focus in terms of scheduled data is going to turn towards core durable goods, housing starts and building permits, and then obviously, of course, the FOMC meeting in minutes, which we will likely break down and read together on a Zoom call when it comes out. We'll be paying attention to whether they lean more dovish or hawkish, supporting rate cuts, quantitative easing, or pushing back on that, stating that the economy is strong and resilient and they're in no position to need to cut anytime soon. Okay. That is all that I have for you guys in terms of my update. Very clean, smooth. I'll continue to give you guys day trading updates. I've made over $10,000 trading XRP since Saturday. So I say I'm going to take a break, but we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to signal anymore, buys or sells to you guys in the chat. I feel like I've done due diligence. I would honestly like to be patient and wait to see if we can get some lower level dark pools on XRP coming to fruition at $1.39 to $1.27 before I seek to buy again. But we'll see how those things play out. But I will let you guys know that if we do come into those lower level dark pools, I will be paying very close attention to how buyers react to those levels to take some nice intraday long scalp positions up into higher prices. But outside of that, Aqua, the floor is yours if you have anything, bro. And yeah, if you guys have any questions for me also, you're more than welcome to ask.